What's up, YouTube? It's the homie Joshua here at the Homie Hangout. Remember, homie stands for helping others move in excellence. And as you could probably tell by the thumbnail, today I'm going to talk about my first day in Juvenile Hall, which also included my first fight in Juvenile Hall. So first, how did I get to the hall, right? I was like 10, close to 11, and I was walking with my friend. We were in Redwood City, right? And I was walking with my friend, and we had seen this lady come down to start her car in this apartment complex where they have the carports kind of at the bottom and then the places to live are up above, right? So she came down, she started her car, and we watched her walk back up the stairs. Obviously, I don't know how to drive. My friend doesn't know how to drive, but in our little travieso minds, it seems like it's a good idea. Let's take this car, right? It was a little bit cold. And so we hop in the car, and it's like, I don't even know what kind of car it was. It's a big, long, brown boat, right? And bang it into the wall when I first get in, right? Because we're like, who's gonna drive? He's like, I ain't driving, you drive. So I don't know how to drive. But we're already in the car, we got fingerprints, the cops, like, we were dramatic, right? And so we're already here, we gotta take the car. I said, all right, don't worry. And so it's got like 3 on the tree, right? So I grab it and I drop down and I bang into the wall, right? I put it in drive and oh shit, not too hard, right? So I finally figure out, get it reverse, and I back up. And like I said, I don't know how to drive, right? Sorry, my dog's getting in the way. I don't know how to drive. And so we're driving and I keep like gassing it and then braking it, gassing it and braking it, right? And we get out onto a somewhat main road, not like El Camino main road, but an actual road, not the driveway anymore. And that's all I'm doing. I'm driving and I see a car in front of me and I slam on the brakes, right? And so it doesn't take long. We get pulled over. Cop comes up. How old are you guys? I said, man, almost a teenager, right? And so, anyways, that's that. Snatches us up. Tries to call to have somebody pick me up. There was nobody available. And so I go to the hall. So the old Hillcrest Juvenile Hall, which is what the cell picture in the thumbnail is, right? Is what the cells used to look like. And so they now, like in the early 2000s, they built a whole new facility that actually looks kind of like a prison. It's got a little yard on the inside and a track. But anyways, I'll save that for another day. And so I go to the hall and I don't know anybody in there, right? I'm not really seeing anybody. And there's these long hallways. So you go, you get processed. And there's A unit, B unit, C unit, D unit, E unit, and then X unit, which is like the whole. And so I'm walking and I go down this long hall and I'm nervous, right? There's nobody else really there. And the staff there at the time, they didn't wear uniforms. They were called counselors and they wore their street clothes. And so this is like 87, 88, right? So I go inside, and when you walk inside the unit, there's like a little station, like a little kind of counselor, what would be a CO station now, right there. And then there's like a day room area. They got a foosball table and a TV and a couple of those like real hard plastic kind of couches. And then there's a hallway that goes to the left and a hallway that goes to the right. So they bring me to the left. I go down the hall, and I think I went in room 11. And so I go in room 11. It's like wooden doors. There's nobody in there. And I'm nervous. And I could see kids looking through the little window in the door as I walk by. And I go in my room, and I'd heard the stories, right, of rape and all this other stuff. And so I'd love to say I walked in there with my head held high and my little bird chest puffed out, a little tall, skinny kid. But no, right? I put on my best front. I had my head up, but you could tell I was nervous probably. And so I knew I was nervous. So I go into the room and I'm sitting there on my little bunk. Like I said, I don't have a cellie. And I start hearing people call my room. Hey, room 11, who's that? Hey, what's your name? And then kids are talking to each other. And it's very intimidating to me, to be honest, right? So kids are talking to each other, and I don't know, like I don't recognize any voices. I don't know who's who, right? And they keep calling my room, and I'm just hush. Just maybe if I pretend like I'm not here, they won't notice me, right? And obviously that didn't work out. And so then it comes time for lunchtime, right? Eventually they stop. They're like, oh, bro, he's scared, or oh, he's a kid, or all this. And mind you, A unit where I went to was all youngsters. So A unit was youngsters, young males, right? B unit was some kind of like extended or therapeutic program that had boys and girls, but they were in opposite wings. I never went there. C unit was a little bit older, but like you're not going to YA type stuff. And then D unit was green shirts, and those were guys that were 17, 18, 19, and looking to go to the Y, or had already been to the Y and came back, or whatever. And then East unit was like this therapeutic detention thing. I was there some years later, but so I'm in A unit. We're all young. And mind you, I don't know any of this at the time. Like, this is just stuff I figured out from years of going back and forth. But at the time, all I know is I'm in jail, like a real ass jail with other real people in these cells, and I'm spooked. And so lunchtime comes around. I've been there a few hours, right? A couple hours. And lunchtime comes around, and when you come out for lunch, they open up everybody's door. You got to stand in your doorway. And then the counselor stands at the end of the hall, and they have you all line up, right? So I go get in line, and I can feel people staring at me, and I can hear some chuckles and some laughs, probably some kids talking mess, right? And then I'm just standing there. I'm in line. I'm waiting. So you walk out, and you go past the little CO station a little bit, and behind that, you turn right, and there's like this dining room area. Each unit had their own. But it's like folding tables and stuff, right? It's not like a chow hall in a prison. And the food, you get a plate of food, and I had a little apple right there. You have a little silverware. You have a cup. You fill your own milk from like a half gallon that's on a table. If you eat all your food and you want extra, a lot of times you can get extra. You run out of milk, they'll bring you more milk. It was actually a pretty decent setup. So I go sit, I'm on a long table, and I sit kind of in the middle on one side, right? Got my back up against the wall, and everybody else sits down, and again, I can kind of see some folks looking, but mostly people are just kind of talking amongst themselves. As I would find out later, there's a constant rotation of people coming in and out. So it's not as if I was the hottest topic. There, people are kind of doing their own thing. And so I'm just watching because I'm trying to figure out the program. Right? I don't want to ask any questions. I'm just trying to be invisible. And obviously it didn't work out too well. So everybody grabs the milk. They pour their own glass. I'm like, okay, that's how we do it. Cool. And I wait until everybody had some. And then I go to grab some and pour mine. Well, it caused me to turn, right, and pour my milk. And just that fast, I look back. There's no apple at my table, right? I have my plate, I have my food, I have my silverware, I have everything. But my little apple that was sitting right there, little red apple, is gone. And there's a couple people looking at me at the table. It looks like there's a couple other people that are kind of scared and sort of looking down like, ooh, what's going to happen? And so I look around, and at the end of the table on this side is this dude, and kind of find out later he was a vigilante, right, from Daly City, a Filipino Crip gang. That's kind of a whole nother story for another, another spill. But he's sitting there, and he has his hair feathered back, right, like it's parted in the middle and feathered back. He has kind of long hair, and he has the start of a mustache. And I'm like, man, he's got pimple marks on his face, right? I didn't have pimples. He looked older. He looked older than anybody else that was around there. And I look and I notice it, but I try to pretend like I didn't really notice it, right? And I'm thinking, okay, what do I do, right? This dude just took my apple. Obviously, he's the only person with 2 apples at his plate. But he's not even trying to hide it. And it's not that I have a big love for apples. I wasn't particularly hungry. It wasn't about the apple. It was more about, I don't know how long I'm going to be in here. I want to be in there a few days that time, but I don't know how long I'm going to be in here. And I'll probably come back, right? Because I was a knucklehead. Like, I didn't get the name Rascal from nowhere. And so at that time, really nobody called me Rascal. I was a little kid. But so I'm like, man, if I let this dude take this apple, what's next? like he might rape me, right? And so, because you hear the worst, you hear the stories and all the scare tactics. And I was like, man, I can't let this happen. But I'm not real eager to fight. I'm not super excited to fight anybody. It's my first day. I don't want no problems. Plus, he looks older. He's a little bigger than me. He's got a little more weight on him for sure. And so I decide, you know what? Maybe it's just misunderstanding. And so I, excuse me, I think you got my apple, right? In my like kind of quiet, calm voice. I don't know what I thought. Maybe I thought he would be, oh yeah, my mistake. Here you go. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's where I started off. And so, hey, excuse me, I think you got my apple. And he's eating off his plate, and he's ignoring me. Doesn't even look up. And so people around the table are like, ooh, and they're kind of snickering, right? And now the focus is on me. And so I'm like, that didn't work, right? So what next? And again, I just kept telling myself, if I let this happen, what's going to happen next, right? So I try to muster up a little bit of not courage necessarily. I mean, I was trying to muster up courage too, but, present myself as a little more serious, right? I'm not just this kid that you're going to push around. And so, hey, you got my apple. And people at the table, ooh, and they're kind of laughing, right? And he looks up. You want it? Come and get it. And kind of stared at me for a minute, put his head down, kept eating. And I was like, son of a bitch, right? That's not what I wanted to hear. And so I'm sitting there and I'm getting nervous. Like my palms are sweating. I feel like the back of my neck is sweating. All of a sudden it's like, what? Man, is it hot in here? And all eyes are on me at this little table. And I feel like there's a couple other people at another table that are sort of looking like but this hasn't been a loud affair, right? This we're not making a bunch of ruckus. It's kind of loud in there anyways with people talking and that kind of stuff. And there's only 2 staff on the unit at any given time, right? Unless one comes by to kind of BS with them, but there's only 2 counselors there. And so they're not even in the area, right? One of them's in the office, the other one, they're kind of popping her head back and forth, oh, you need more milk or whatever. But it's not like prison, right? Where they're a little more observant. To be like, it's the 80s on San Mateo County, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm holding a chair. And people are looking at me like, what's he going to do? And that's making me, in a sense, almost more fearful, right? Because what do they think is going to happen if I don't do something? And so there's this plastic, it's a plastic seat, and there's metal bars for the legs that kind of go underneath the seat part. And so I'm holding it and I could feel the cold of the metal of the legs, right? I guess the legs go this way, not that way. But so I can feel the cold of the metal. And I'm kind of psyching myself up. Took a deep breath and just, and I got up in one motion and kind of grabbed the chair and flung it his way. And it just bounced on the table and knocked a bunch of shit over. The chair didn't even really hit him, I don't think. And I just rushed. Right? The next thing I remember is I'm walking down the hall back to my room. By this little female counselor, probably 5 foot nothing. And I feel like I was hit, right? Anybody's getting in a fight knows what that is. But my face wasn't messed up. I didn't have a black eye or bloody nose or busted lip or anything else. And my hand hurt, so I punched something. I wasn't knocked out, but I sort of blacked out. And so I'd love to sit here and say, oh man, I whooped this bully's ass and taught him a lesson, and that's not really what happened, right? I did my best, and it was out of fear, but I stood up for myself. And so I get walked back. I kind of come to, like I said, as the lady's walking me. And she goes, this is a heck of a first day. And I was like, yeah. She goes, what happened? I don't even know. So she puts me in a room, puts me back in my room. She's like, your lunchtime is over. Cool. And I sit in my cell and I'm like, damn, what did I just do? Right? What kind of door did I just open up? Who is this guy? Does he have a bunch of homies in here? Did I just start some kind of a beef or a funk that I'm gonna have to deal with when the door opens? Like what? I have no idea what comes next. But I'm nervous, right? And so a little while later, not long, lunch is over, they bring, the guys back. And some of them are walking by and they're looking through my door. Okay, there he is right there. There he is. And their demeanor is not a negative one, but I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah, here I am, but so what? And so we all go in, they all go in, they get locked up. The counselor leaves and goes back to their little station, BSing. And they start hollering in my room again and talking to each other. Hey, man, did you see it? No, I didn't see it. I was sitting on another table. Oh, man, yeah, the kid, he threw the chair and ran at him like a wild animal. And oh, is that right? Yeah. What happened? Did he get whooped? And no, he got touched a few times and he touched him. That dude's a punk. And I'm like, oh, man, see, I'm in trouble. Come to find out, no, as I listen a little bit more, they're talking about the other guy. The other guy's a punk, right? And so I'm a little confused. I'm like, okay. And the demeanor of them calling out to my room. So now I start to answer, right? Hey, man, yeah, what's up? This is room 11. Hey, what's up, man? Good job in there. Good job in there. F that fool, blah, blah, blah. Hey, where you from? Right? What you in here for? You just came in today, huh? Yeah, this and that. So we're talking. And I'm feeling a little bit more relaxed now. Like, hey, maybe it's not going to be the end of the world when the door opens next time. And so dinner time, I couldn't come out. They brought me my dinner. But then for program time, I was able to come out in the evening, right? And so I come out and there's this dude, Armando RC from South San Francisco, C Street, right? It's called Wino. I used to call him Meximo because he was half Mexican, half Eskimo. And turned out to be a very good friend of mine. We stayed connected for years. And he got murdered a while back in San Francisco. But he was a good dude. And I come out and he's standing there. He got a little size on him. Like I said, we're all young. So he's my age, maybe a little bit older, but not much. We're not teenagers yet, for sure. But he carries himself with this demeanor, right, of kind of peace and authority at the same time, right? Like you could tell he was comfortable in the shoes that he was wearing. He was comfortable in the environment. And he had some folks that kind of looked in his direction. I wouldn't say he was a shot caller. It wasn't a big gang thing necessarily. In fact, at the time, he was claiming to be a blood. C Street and South City was a mix, right? There was a couple Bloods, a couple Northerners. There was one dude that went down to Grape Street for summer and came back a Crip. It was a mess. But anyway, so he comes up. He's like, what's up, man? What's your name? And we're talking. He's like, hey, man, F that dude. And so what I come to find out is that's when I hear he's a vigilante out of Daly City, right? And he was there for attempted murder for a shooting, and he was on his way to YA. He was like 17. He belonged on D Unit, and he had been on D Unit, and he kept getting punked. And so finally, they moved him to our unit because he couldn't play nice with the big boys, right? Really, the big boys didn't play nice with him, apparently. So they put him down here with the kids, and which I think in hindsight wasn't quite the fair thing to do for the kids, but that's his gig, right? And so he's just punking people because he was getting punked. And so then I learned there's this policy, kind of unwritten policy there of, if you're bigger than somebody or you're tougher than somebody, frankly, and you try to punk them and they stand up for themselves, you're supposed to pull back, right? and just kind of let them have it. But if they don't stick up for themselves, then it's fair game. If somebody's going to let you take advantage of them, then go ahead and take advantage of them. And so it's like a twisted sort of an anti-bullying rule in a way, right? And so he's kind of running me down, and he's like, man, that dude got rolled up out of here. And because they knew that we were gonna smash him, right? We're tired of that dude anyways. And that's not cool what he did, and he kind of broke the code right here, and he's just a punk, and he's talking to us shit about him. And I'm like, okay. He's like, man, he ain't beat nobody up here, nothing. He just tries to bully people because he's older. And so I wanted, he's like, hey, come over here, play foosball, meet this guy, meet that guy. And so now I'm meeting other kids, right? And from all over the county, right? Some folks from Redwood City, where I was kind of staying in the area at the time, but I didn't know them. San Mateo, West Side 18th Street, and like I said, C Street, and all through the area, right? East Palo Alto. And so I'm playing foosball, and I'm accepted, so to speak. I remember going back to my room that night after program. I got a couple extra snacks. One of the workers used to walk down with like a big black garbage bag filled with those little cookies. And you put a paper under your door, they put a couple cookies and give it to you. But there was a lot of power in having that role, because essentially you weren't supervised. So you can give as many or as little cookies to somebody as you wanted to. And you're supposed to get 3. And so, but obviously people look out for their homeboys or whatever. And so this fool shoots me like 6, 8 little cookies, right? And I was like, wow. And I learned a lesson that day. And that lesson stuck with me for years, right? 30 plus years. And to some degree, I still, it still has a factor in my thinking, although I try to be more mature about situations. And that is, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as you're not a punk, right? As long as you stick up for yourself and you're not a punk, then you can hold your head high. And in fact, folks will respect that, right? And even sometimes your enemies or strangers or whatever. And that was a good lesson to learn. And that lesson kind of served me well through my life. But that translates into also then, sometimes, at least for me, overanalyzing when somebody's trying to punk me or when they're not, right? So, man, why is that person looking at me that way? Are they trying to punk me? We're arguing over something and we don't agree. Are you trying to punk me? Right? And so, and I was a violent guy to some degree. I was never the guy that ran around and was just itching to fight everybody. I never turned down a fight, obviously. And I was down for whatever, right? I've been beat up, I've beat up people. I've been jumped, I've jumped people. I've stabbed people, I've been stabbed. I've been shot at, I've shot people. And so I'm kind of down for whatever, but I'm not a hyper-aggressive person. At the same time, that lesson of don't be a punk, it sits with you and can cause you to act out of character or to act over-dramatic as you get older for situations that don't warrant it, right? So anyways, that's my story of my first fight in Juvenile Hall and what happened. Like I said, I was there for a couple of days. I didn't get in any more fights. I got out. I was wound up back there, a few days later, and there'll be a succession of videos, not in a particular order, but, all this stuff will get unpacked over time. And so, like I said, that don't be a punk lesson, I don't regret it in the sense of the age I was and the environment I was and the track that my life was going to take. But now sitting here at 44 years old, I view stuff a little different. And I try to set that mindset aside and try to evaluate what's most important. And is this really worth it? Or is this even true? Am I jumping to a conclusion that's not accurate, right? I'm in Costco walking around and somebody's looking in my direction. Well, are they trying to get at me? What's going on? No, they're not. They're shopping at Costco, right? Maybe they like my hat. Maybe they like my tattoos. Maybe I look like somebody that, slept with their ex-girlfriend, and so they want to see. Who knows? But I don't have to jump and react all the time. Now, you pose a threat, that's a different story, obviously. You pose a threat to my family, it's a different story. But that's not on some don't be a punk stuff. That's on some self-defense. right? And standing up for my loved ones, in particular, those that are unable to stand up for themselves. And so it's different. But anyways, that's my spiel. It got out a little bit later than I expected, but today's been kind of a busy day. Strive to be a homie, man. Help others move in excellence. And I'll tap in with you guys tomorrow. Take care.